Okay, our next movie is Stalingrad, and it is perhaps one of the grimmest depictions of war that we are likely to find in the movies. Stalingrad provides a fascinating close-up view of the brutal battle for the Russian city of Stalingrad through the eyes of German soldiers during World War II. That's Thomas Kretschmann playing
You should
Lieutenant
see me
von
now.
Weizland. Now you may recognize Kretschmann as that benevolent German officer from The Pianist. In Stalingrad, he again plays the benevolent officer role, but here he is seen as inexperienced and young. He strives to make a difference and he tries his best to be a suitable leader to all of his men.
Excuse have you for being late for the parade, Corporal?
Hospital visit to your predecessor, Herr Leutnant.
A hero must never be late, Corporal. Remember that. In the future. Sergeant, do you plan to accept the Fuhrer's award with an unbuttoned collar?
Yes, Herr Leutnant.
Von Weizland and his two closest confidants, the big-eared but cheerful Fritz, played by Dominic Horwitz, and the hardened veteran Rollo, played by Jochen Nickel, are all transferred from Italy, where they were on leave to take part in the battle for Stalingrad on the Eastern Front. When their unit arrives in Stalingrad, much of the city is in ruins, but the tenacious Russian defenders have taken to hiding inside abandoned and destroyed buildings in order to harass and provide stiff resistance to the Germans for every foot they advance. Brutal urban warfare between the Germans and the Russians ensue. Eventually, Weizland, Rollo, and Fritz are stripped of their rank when they're caught forcing a medic to treat one of their wounded friends in a crowded field hospital. From here, they are transferred to the outskirts of Stalingrad, where they are given harsh duties such as demining roads in the freezing cold as punishment. They are even caught up in a battle against a horde of Soviet tanks. From that point on, the situation for the Germans literally collapsed as the Russians encircle the city, and for Weizland and his men, the fighting for Stalingrad turns into a vicious struggle for survival. Their plight is depressing to watch, but it brings out the effective human dimension to this film. We can see the personal agony of each soldier, all of whom eventually come to greatly detest war and killing. This affirms director Wilsmer's anti-war message. This fog of war is what Stalingrad as a war movie better explores more than any other war movie. It looks at each soldier personally and shows effectively the negative impact war is having on that soldier. The excruciating horror of constantly waiting, the suicidal thoughts, the yearning to survive, it's all there. We see the soldiers as ordinary men living out a nightmare. Now, Joseph Wilsmer made Stalingrad on a relatively low budget of some $20 million, but he spent it quite carefully recreating the chaos of Stalingrad. The buildings and the environments reflected their actual counterparts from the 1940s. The visuals were for the most part stunning and the battle scenes were gripping. Stalingrad is a German language film, but the available English version is dubbed. The German language film version offers more in the sense that the dialogue is more natural and convincing. Screenplay is first rate, especially with regards to the agony of the soldiers. These scenes were very powerful to watch. This can be attributed to the convincing acting. Kretschmann and Horwitz are excellent at creating visceral emotions. The personalities they create better allow us to see them as human beings. They better allow us to see that even Nazis were ordinary people with very real emotions. Although Stalingrad realistically portrayed the shooting, the maiming, the blood, and the gore, basically all of the baggage that comes in a war movie, it ultimately was not able to convey the smells, the tastes, and the physical agony associated with the killing fields. However, Stalingrad made an honest attempt to bring about the most realistic representation of war that is so far possible. For this it should be lauded, and for this reason alone it is worth viewing. So firm thumbs up for me, Roger. Thumbs up for me too, Richard. This movie was interesting because the chaos of war was there all throughout. We didn't just see this as a good guys versus bad guys ordeal for the heroes winning in the end.
Yeah, no
What we
doubt.
saw was a representation of war where ordinary men went up against ordinary men. What we saw was mass human suffering, soldiers dying and suffering injuries from the brutal battles, men freezing to death in the cold, and etc. we also saw the desperation that exists in war. How these ill-fated soldiers scramble to survive, it was just really powerful stuff. I'll never forget that field hospital scene. It was just filled with so many soldiers, the dead among the injured. And you can see the amputations going on. It's just brutal. Wilschmeyer does an excellent job of telling us the reality of war through the eyes of these soldiers. It's just so depressing to see what they have to go through. Even chilling is how their commanding officers don't care about their plight. How these fellows sit in their lavish bunkers with hoarded supplies, sipping wine, while the soldiers are out in the cold, freezing to death. This isn't some shoot-'em-up Hollywood movie. We see real issues pertaining to war that are present. We truly see the insanity of war. It's just a good war movie. It'll instantly go down as a classic.